I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right, all my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts. Welcome to the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show right here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch, I'm your host. We've got a fantastic show for you today. I mean, we always have a fantastic show, but today is really going to be great. We're going to have with us here a little bit later on the show is our featured guest, a little bit of a roundtable conversation, if you will. We're going to have Andrew Millison, documentarian, permaculture educator. We're going to be talking about his adventures in permaculture along with our good friend and co-host today and co-host of our book club, Mr. MBC, will be joining with us a little bit later on in the show, as well as being in the garden. We're going to be in the garden with our good friend Paul from Guten Gardening. He's got a great in the garden segment for us coming up here in just a few minutes. And thank you all. I mean, really great to see all of you here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us for another one of our Sunday edition discussions today. And yeah, just really glad to have you here with us. Glad to be here with you. So let's go ahead and do this right at the top of the show. Let's go ahead and, yeah, you know the drill. Let's click that like button, hit the thumbs up, as well as subscribe. Subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming shows. And share with all of your garden friends out there. Let them know that we're here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And yes, right here at the top of the show, we also want to give a big, huge shout out to our friends who are watching us on the replay. Thank you, Team Replay in the house. Thank you so much for being here. And if you can, drop into the comments section below. Let us know you're here. Let us know what you got growing on, where you're growing from. How's the garden growing? What are you harvesting up out of the garden? I'd love to hear all about it in the comments section below. Or you just drop in and say hello. Love to hear from all of you. Thank you very much for the comments. And again, all that other stuff there. Really great way to support the show for sure. And if you're here with us live today, definitely drop into the chat and let us know you're here, because we've got a roll call coming up in just a couple of minutes as well. So yeah, let us know you're here. Let us know where you're growing from, just like Team Replay. Let us know what you got growing on. I'd love to hear all about the garden. And yeah, and questions. Love to see some questions. We got a great guest with us, so I want to see some really great questions coming from the audience a little bit later on in the show. We're going to be talking with Andrew Millison, and drop those questions in comments as well. We'll feature those right there in the show down at the bottom of the screen. And also, again, I want to thank everybody for all of the great donations that we've been getting lately here for the show. Really appreciate all that you do to support the show, especially throwing out a couple of dollars here and there towards our show and our show budget so that we can talk about and do some really great things here with the show coming up. So again, I thank you so much. We got links down below to Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, those sort of things, so that you can drop in a donation. And I know that I think here through September, I believe, Jay's been doing a double your donations. Yes, that's right, doubling your donations. So definitely drop in. So that, you know, again, no donations too small. So just a couple of dollars, that'd be really awesome. And you know, $2 makes $4, $5 makes $10, and helps us go a long way with what we can do here on the show. So I really, really appreciate that from all of you out there. Thanks for supporting our show. And as we were talking with Greg yesterday, you know, it's kind of about the value, right? I mean, if you feel that you get a really great value from this show, then I really appreciate the donations. Really awesome. Thank you so much too for that. And links down below in the description too to our guests and to our other social media. We've got contributor links down below as well too. So check out all those links. Go show some support to our guests and contributors. Go let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. So again, with all that taken care of, thank you all again for being here. It's just really, really awesome to be here with you. I do want to mention too, I'll be talking about here a couple times during the show, but we've got a great visit we're going to do. We're going to be taking off from the Let's Get Growing show here this week, and we're going to go and visit our good friend Chad down at Down Home Backyard Garden. He's got a great show that he started up over there called Around the Garden Table. And I'm going to be his featured guest this Thursday, September 3rd at 6 p.m. Central. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff there on Chad's show. And as well, and I teased this yesterday as well too, I've got a special announcement for our show that I'm going to talk about on his show. So you're going to want to come and join with both of us there and hear about this special announcement that I'm going to make over there on Chad's channel and his show Around the Garden Table. I'm really excited about this. It's been a while. We've been working on trying to find a good date where we can get in and have this discussion. I think it just timed out perfectly. So come and join with us this next Thursday. So I know Jay will be leaving a link there for everybody, so you can go over and again hit that notifications there, and also you can put a reminder so it'll remind you when the show gets started. So again, I hope to see you all there, and I can't wait to tell you all about what we've got brewing up here at the Let's Get Growing show. So right on, everybody. Have you been jumping in? I want to see all of you there jumping into the chat real quick here and letting us know, like I said, what you got growing on, where you're growing from. Definitely want to let us know where you're growing from too, and what you got harvesting out of the garden, all of that sort of stuff, because it's time now for roll call.
My name is Kevin. Yeah. That is my name. Yeah. They call me Kevin. Yeah. Because that's my name. Roll call.
All right, roll call. This is the time of the show where we get to give you, the audience who's joining with us live here, a big, huge shout out here at the top of our show. And let's see who we've got in our roll call. And of course, we like to start off our roll call with a big, huge shout out to our facilitator, Jay Dixon, the J-Bot. And again, a big, huge thank you to her, because she stepped in, took over the show for us last Sunday edition of the show. And I just wasn't feeling well enough to get on the screen and be here with you guys. But it's so awesome that we've got Jay with us here on the show, producing and facilitating the show, and every now and then jumping in for a little bit of what we call a J-Bot takeover. And I really appreciate her doing that last week. It was just really needed. Wasn't feeling well enough to be here, but she put on a great show, discussion, taking you all through what she's got growing on in her garden, and also had a few other little guests joining with her as well on that show too. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out, you'll want to check that out. And let's see here. We've got John Jude joining with us as well. Awesome to have you here. He's here from Zone 6A in Mid-Ohio. And after several wet weeks of weather and after seeing your great garden, I'm ready for more information. Awesome. Awesome. I hope you're going to enjoy the show today. Again, like I said, we got an amazing guest today. So drop in some questions too. Like I said, I want to see some questions from all of you folks too. All right, we got Michael O'Connor with us. Howdy, Mike from North Alabama, Zone 8A, 7B in the mountains. Right on, Mike. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you joining us today. Janet with us as well. Always great to see you, Janet. And she says, looking forward to our far-flung gardeners who always surprise me. They share their cheerful persistence, which also lightens the other challenges of life. Well, that's a great thing to say. What an amazing compliment for what we do here on the show with our conversations with all these amazing guests that we get here each and every weekend. So thank you, Janet. Really appreciate that. Meg's Edible Landscape with us here. Thank you so much. It's so great to see you in the chat. And our good friend, my good friend as well, all of our good friend and moderator, Adam Burley, joining with us here from Central Point, which, like he says, is just right up the road from me here in Southern Oregon. It's so great to have you here with us, Adam. Thanks for joining in on the conversation. We've got our good friend, contributor David from Bowtie Life with us too. And Triple G, greetings, global gardeners from the Emerald Coast, where 2.48 million Scoville Dragon's Breath became hot sauce, and September's super hot adventures are getting mighty close. That's right. You want to go over and check out Bowtie Life. He is going to be doing a live stream coming up here real soon, where he's going to eat one of those 2.48 million Dragon's Breath peppers. I mean, I can't wait. I saw the one he did last year. I don't know. This one might be even more intense and more crazy. It's always kind of interesting to watch people. I hate to say, funny. It's not really funny in the long run. I mean, it can be because they're doing it on purpose to themselves. But at the same time, oh man, I can't believe it. I am, I grow tons of super hot peppers over the years, but I'm not that brave. So go check out David as he braves that Dragon's Breath pepper over on his channel coming up here real soon. And I see Chad from Down Home Backyard Gardening. We were just mentioning he's here in the chat with us too. He says, better late than never. That's right. Better late than never. It's always great to see you, Chad. It'll be really awesome to catch up with you this Thursday. I can't wait to hang out with you over there on your show. Going to be really awesome. So again, everybody, go and make your way over there to Down Home Backyard Gardening and get yourself a reminder for our show coming up this Thursday. And Bowtie Life says, seriously, always good to see the chat around. That's right. Always good to see Chad here with us. Thank you so much for being here. And excited to have you join us on Thursday. That's right, man. I'm just as excited myself to get over there and check it out. And Chad says he's joining us from Spring, Texas, Zone 9B. The heat has the garden stalled except for okra. Okra's bearing the heat out, just growing crazy down there, huh? My okra is, I don't know. I think I got it in late, or I didn't do well with okra. There's some plants out there struggling to go out. I've had a few fruits that have come up and all of that, but not like I've grown before. So, as I talked about yesterday, the garden's doing really amazing all over. So many things are really surprising me and how well it's doing. The okra, on the other hand, wasn't. So I'm glad that you've got some great okra growing right now too. So see, Midwest Lawn Care. Awesome. Oh, you said I'm not here. You're here, but not here. Okay. Well, it's great to have you here. It's great to have you here or not here, I guess, if you are. But thank you so much for jumping into the chat with us. Great to have you there. And Janet says, let's see here. To Adam. Okay. Oregon bamboo. I bought early 90s and really tall hedge now in front, shading the vehicle in back, shading the garden on the west. Well, it looks like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, bamboo can make a great shade crop as long as you can keep it under control. You got it in a good space where it's not going to spread too much. Because bamboo, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, can be really, really problematic and spread all over the place. I'd like to get maybe some bamboo and see if I can get it growing in some containers and see what we can do with it there. But yeah, great. Makes a great shade, though. Like you said, grows nice and tall. Big West Lawn says, I'm fairly okay, nearing upon decent. Well, thanks for being here with us anyways. So great to see you. And Jay put in here a little notification. It's September 9th that Bowtie will be doing his eating of the Dragon's Breath peppers. So go and check that out over Bowtie Life on September 9th. And then we've got Dusty Flats in the conversation with us. Hello, everyone. Gloomy day in Wisconsin and chance of rain again. Need to get some harvest in. Yeah, it's getting that time of year now. We're going to start seeing the rain again. I've got rain in the forecast for me here coming up this next week. Kind of excited about that. And then let's see here. We've got comedy, autism in the garden. Great to see you. Thanks for joining with us here on the show. Really awesome to have you here with us. Oh, it's Serena. Okay, yeah. Well, there you go. You got a different screen name than I saw notice, but we got Serena here with us. Just change the channel and handle for security reasons. Well, that's great. That's a great title there for you too. Awesome to have you here with us. Thanks for being here. And Janet's joining us from Central Texas Hill Country. Great weather for 9A. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And then we've got Joe jumping in last minute there. Says, I'm late for a very important date. That's right. Thank you so much for being here. So great to see you. We also got Darth X jumping in here as well, too. Thank you so much, everybody, for being in here. Thank you for joining with us and dropping in for our roll call today. And again, if you didn't get your shout out here on roll call, keep jumping into the chat there. Let us know where you're growing from and all of that sort of stuff. And we'll feature those there at the bottom of the screen throughout the show. Again, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Really awesome to have you. Let's see here real quick. Let's, oh, you know what? I got to get this ready. We've got a great in the garden segment here. You know, yesterday, anyways, what I wanted to mention though too, real quick before we get started with this is, you know, it's really awesome to have all these just really great contributors that we get to the show. And, you know, folks like Jay, who's back facilitating for us right now and producing, and, you know, Paul and David and our friend MBC, who's going to be joining with us later on the show. You know, and our, you know, when we had our Monday show, which, hopefully we'll have some news about that coming up soon. You know, we had Shawnee Grows and Robin Gardens and Katrina from Sow and Tear. And then we've got Brandy, who does our trivia and everything too. And when it comes down to it, you know, I really, really appreciate everybody who comes and, you know, gives their time and helps make this show really, really great. So, you know, and I like to say, you know, they're really volunteers when it comes to being on the show. And, you know, nobody is getting paid around here. You know, we're barely making our budgets when it comes down to it. That's why we ask for our donations and all of that. But, you know, every now and then I do want to give a big, huge shout out to them and say thank you to them for all that they've done to help make this show really great. You know, those are really awesome volunteers that we have for our show. But also, you know, when it comes to the gardening world and in gardening, you know, when we're talking about volunteers, we're talking about something a little bit different. And that's what Paul's going to be talking about today in the garden.
Well, maybe you can tell by the lighting here, but it is just a little bit after 5 a.m. here in Zone 5, Wisconsin. And it feels almost a little bit chilly out, which is, I mean, after the weeks of hot weather we've had, it's a relief. I will say, yesterday I was out during the day and it was what I would consider to be a perfect day. Well, I don't want to go too far down to this because I want to hop into today's video topic because I think it's an essential topic and it's all about volunteer plants. Now, I've done other videos where I've talked about these are plants that if you plant them once, you'll probably never need to buy the seed again because they're so self-seeding. They spread so much. But today I want to talk about how I decide which volunteer plants I keep, because some people, I think, pull all their volunteers out of the ground. Some people leave everything and just whatever may happen, happen. But I'm somewhere in the middle, and there's some rationale to which plants I view as helpful volunteers, as free food, and which plants I treat like weeds and I pull up out of the ground. So we're going to take a look at some of our volunteers today, and I'm going to talk you through my logic. So let's get started. Well, first and foremost, we're going to walk back here to my main garden space because actually this year, this is where a large number of my volunteers have come in and where I can actually talk very clearly, I think, about my rationale. And I'm going to start right here with these butter beans. Now last year I planted a bunch of butter beans right along this DIY trellis. This is where I typically grow my pole beans, my cucumbers in particular, along these trellises. And at the beginning of this season, I noticed that some of the beans that I had left on the trellis hanging had opened up, some of the pods had opened up and dropped their seeds. But, you know, I came through, I took care of the weeds, etc. But I didn't take the time to go through and try to pick up every single one of those beans. And so, quite expectedly, I would say, I started to see these beans appearing about a month ago. So the first thing I had to ask myself, and I think this is really the key question, is do I want more of this particular crop? I would say that's an essential question to ask of any volunteer plant, because number one, let's say you grew a plant the previous season, your family didn't enjoy it or you didn't enjoy the plant, and it's coming back. There's really no need to put yourself back through that process of growing a plant, growing a vegetable that you don't want. And so if that were the case for these beans, I would have just, as they're sprouting up, pulled every single one. My key thought process here is eat what you're going to grow and try to grow what you're going to eat. And so again, step number one is looking at, do I actually want more of this vegetable? And if you decide that you want more and that volunteer plant is going to provide you with some of that free food, then the second thing to look at is the location of that volunteer plant, because sometimes those plants that just want to live come in at the wrong spot. And that is an important piece too, because if you have a plan for your garden, if you have a garden layout that you want, and you've got volunteer plants popping up and taking over a spot you don't want them to, that's going to be a problem. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about in terms of location, location, location. Pepper plant, I planted that. Pepper plant, I planted that. Random tomato plant in the middle of everything, that's a volunteer. Random bean, again, in the middle of everything, that is now going over and spread onto a pepper plant in the middle of nowhere with nothing to trellis onto. That is a volunteer. Now I've left these in here for the exact purpose of this video, so you can see this plant and this plant are not necessarily in ideal spaces, except this tomato plant is surrounded by some open space. So I could actually come in and cage this tomato plant, and maybe this bean could work up that cage. So I've left these here versus this tomato plant, which has volunteered, and you can see it's pretty massive. It needs to be trimmed. I need to come in and trellis this a little bit. You can actually see some of the tomatoes on here. This plant appeared in the corner by a trellis. And I made the decision, even though this is a rather large plant, I made the decision to keep this plant here because it's already up against some of the fencing, up against the trellis. And I figured this one, while it came up, if it had come up in the middle, it'd be a problem. I just need to make sure I take care of it. Again, I'm going to trim this back. I'm going to thin this out a little bit so that it actually isn't taking over. Well, you can see it right here, trying to take over a pepper plant. So location is really important when it comes to these volunteer plants, making sure that those plants aren't in the way. Now, a third consideration here might be, if a volunteer plant comes up and I do want more of that plant, but it is in the wrong location, is it possible for me to transplant it? And transplantation for some plants is a pretty easy proposition, meaning that they're sturdy enough, hardy enough, maybe is not exactly the right term, but basically that they're strong enough of a plant to where if you try your best not to disturb the roots too much, but you dig around and you pull it up, that plant will survive. There are other plants where transplantation doesn't work so well. They really don't like to be disturbed. Actually, I don't know that any plant loves to be disturbed, but you get my point. Well, for some of these beans, when they first started coming up, I dug around and I moved them over, except for that one, because I came up a little bit later, but I moved them over closer to the trellis. So it's possible that I want to plant, it's in the wrong spot, and I can transplant. And if that's the case, and if I have the space for it, then that might be a volunteer I want to keep. But then I want to ask myself, will this volunteer plant grow true to type? Because there are quite a few plant types that absolutely will grow true to type. I mean, you typically won't have any problems with things like beans, lettuce, heirloom tomatoes, etc. But then there are other plants like squash, and squash is one that comes to mind pretty quickly, where you can have issues getting a next generation plant that's going to be true to the parent. And so that's something else that I have to keep into consideration. You know, one plant that I've never had a problem coming back is this right behind me here. This is borage. And this is one of the plants that I featured in my videos where I talk about planting it once and it'll always be there. And while I could just pull this away every single time I see it coming up, I love the taste so much, I just can't do it. Every single bit of this, delicious. Now this tomato in particular actually brings up my next point and my next thought about whether or not I should keep this. And that is quite simply, you know, we have a approximately 150-day season here in Zone 5, Wisconsin. And if a volunteer gets a late start, depending on the type, there's no guarantee that you're going to get enough time or have enough time for there to be a harvest of that plant. So if I see a volunteer come up, but I know it's too late in the season, I'm not going to get any kind of production from it, then there's no sense in wasting your time on that plant. So this tomato, I talked about how I could cage it, you know, maybe have the bean grow up. Well, I'm confident that I could get enough from the bean. That's not a problem. Well, whether or not there's enough time for this tomato, that's something I have to consider as I, again, make a decision about, well, is this volunteer worth it? Now, there are a couple of other considerations that I want to keep in mind here. Is the plant that's coming up, the volunteer plant, healthy? Sometimes you see disease, etc. with these. Although, to be honest, with a lot of volunteer plants, what I have found is that they seem to be the healthiest somehow. They seem to just, you know, produce super well, especially with my tomatoes. I have found volunteer tomatoes just produce. But is it healthy? And as I sort of hinted at earlier, is it going to cause problems later as it gets bigger? Is it going to shade out those smaller crops that are nearby? Is it something maybe that doesn't work very well planted with another? Is it not a good companion for the vegetables that I also have planted there? So I want to keep those in consideration as well. And really, a lot of this comes down to, is it worth the garden space? Because every plant, every vegetable, every fruit, every flower that you have in the garden takes up some amount of space. And so you've probably seen this. First year gardeners, maybe not so much, but the second year, especially if you've grown tomatoes, especially if you've grown cherry tomatoes, you've probably seen suddenly 30, 40, 50, hundreds of little tiny tomato plants popping up at the beginning of the season. And you ask yourself, number one, do I want cherry tomatoes? Do I want all those tomatoes? Number two, do I have the space for what it is that's coming up? You know, one of the fantastic elements of the garden is that these fruits and vegetables have, most of the time, so many seeds. They can just take over and just reproduce year after year if you let them. So you ask yourself, do I have space for this? Do I want this? Remember, any plant can become, by your definition, a weed, can become a plant you don't want. And so I think that's so important to remember. I mean, the word weed is tossed around here and there, but in my mind, if I have a place where I have a plant and I don't want it, don't need it, I'm not going to eat it, just pull it out and use that ground a little bit more wisely. I think there's something really important to keep in mind here. I mean, some of these plants are so aggressive in their self-seeding and volunteering that, like this dill right here, unless you love dill, and I do enjoy dill, but unless you're going to use a lot of it, as these plants start volunteering, you're going to have to be pretty particular about pulling them before they go to seed, or else you're going to have them forever. Now, the thing about dill, the thing about borage, is they do tend to spread to different places beyond where you started them. So, man, the smell of dill is so good. So that's something else to keep in mind, I suppose, is that if you're going to pull these, if you're going to have a plant that you don't want, you probably better pull it early, unless you're going to keep a close eye on it. I mean, there's so many seeds, so many more dill plants here, right? Now, that being said, sometimes I'll keep a volunteer plant for the sake of experimentation, because I want to see what will happen. I've done that with our potatoes, our volunteer potatoes. I had one video where I harvested over 12 pounds of potatoes just from volunteers and was really pleased with what I saw there. I'm going to show you another one that I'm experimenting around with a little bit. Here you see some of our fall beets in this green stalk, but on one of our lower tiers, in addition to beets, I have a whole bunch of purslane. Now, this purslane, some people call it an edible weed. Some people grow this on purpose. This volunteers everywhere. But I'm experimenting around with this, so I haven't removed all of it. I've actually allowed some of it to stay in here so that I can try out some recipes. Now, this whole process of making a determination as to whether or not a volunteer plant is something you want to keep is actually something that takes just a few seconds, because I think you consider all of those things pretty quickly as you get in the habit of looking at different places in your garden. And you can make those determinations quickly, and I think maybe it becomes second nature. But I think it's important to understand the thought process behind it. Now, all that being said, I'm interested in what you have to say about this process for you. Is there a volunteer plant that you're hoping for, looking forward to every year? Is there a volunteer plant that you just have to get out of your garden? Well, it's amazing how the lighting has changed. I've only been out here for about 25 minutes. The sun's coming up and I've got work to do. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful, maybe a little bit thought-provoking on your own. I realize we're a little bit later in our season here in Zone 5, Wisconsin, but for those of you in different grow zones, or even as you're thinking about your future gardens or what you're seeing in your garden now, I hope this video was useful for you.
Hello, Let's Get Growing Live gardening community. I'm Charles Malky, biologist and co-founder of Ivy Organic brand products. Ivy Organic is based on whitewashing, a time-tested way to protect plants from summer sunburn, winter sun scald, pests, transplant shock, and environmental stresses. Unlike latex or tar-based products that crack, peel, and leave residue on your soil indefinitely, Ivy Organic is truly organic and a healthier alternative. It dries on porous, allowing plants to breathe and heal naturally without rotting. Also ideal for protecting your pruning and grafting wounds. Available in white for maximum reflection or natural tones like brown, green, gray, and grayish. Ivy Organic protects while blending beautifully with your landscape. Choose from the whitewash oil-free formula or the 3-in-1 plant guard made with natural oils to help repel insects and rodents. Protect your plants the smart, organic way with Ivy Organic. Learn more at ivyorganics.com and wishing you all happy gardening.
Oh, better make sure I'm on. Better make sure I'm on screen. Hey, everybody, we're back at it here. And again, thank you so much to our wonderful sponsor, Ivy Organics, over at ivyorganics.com. Get some of your 3-in-1 plant guard. Use our promo code GROW10, GROW10, and get 10% off of that 3-in-1 plant guard there. And also, big, huge thank you to Paul from Guten Gardening for doing our In the Garden segment this week. Definitely drop into the description down below, find a link to Guten Gardening, and go over and check out what he's got growing on over there. Let him know in one of his videos that you saw him here on the Let's Get Growing show. And real quick here, before we get going to our garden roundtable today, did you get a chance to check out yesterday's show? Oh man, we had a great discussion. Farmer Greg Peterson from the Urban Farm podcast joined with us again yesterday, and we talked all about, he just celebrated, his 1000th episode of the Urban Farm podcast. And we talked all about that and talked about his life's work in gardening and permaculture and all of that sort of stuff that he's got growing on, and his new farm and garden that he's got over there in North Carolina. It's always great to catch up with Greg. So go back, check out that show from yesterday. And also, too, did you get a chance to check out last week's shows? Last week, we had another great conversation. Returning again to the show was the Pacific Northwest's Cisco Morris from Gardening with Cisco. He was here joining with us as well. It's always fun. I'm telling you, if you didn't get a chance to check out this show, you want to go back and check it out. We had so much fun talking about his lifelong career in gardening as well, too, last week. And plus, we got to meet Dee from Root Elation in our Are You Following Me segment. Really awesome, great guests and everything. And as I just mentioned also a little bit earlier too, last Sunday edition of the show, Jay took over for us as I wasn't feeling well to be on the show. And again, thank you to her. If you didn't get a chance to check out those discussions and some of the guests who popped on to hang out with her as well too. So really great conversation last Sunday for the Sunday edition of the show. So right on, go back, check those out, and leave some comments and all of that in the comments section. Hit the like button, all that sort of stuff we do for today's show as well. So, all right, everybody, it's time for us to get started. We got, like I said, we got a great guest today, and we also got a great co-host too. But let's get started with this. Let's have a little Sunday garden roundtable. All right. So real quick here. First, let's add to the stage here our good friend. Oh, I gotta hit the right thing. There he is, Marc. Marc, how are you doing?
Enoch, I am great. I'm happy to be here. You know where I am today? I'm in Canby, Oregon at the Swan Island Dahlia Farm, which is like
What?
6 acres of dahlias that are behind me in just a stunning array of colors. So I'm happy. I got a smile on my face. I'm in one of their demo gardens right now where they have all their varieties laid out in these beautiful borders and little islands. And you get the names are fun. The dahlias are beautiful. It's just people are happy. They're all milling around enjoying this incredible display.
Wow. Here, real quick, you turn your phone sideways.
There we go.
That'll give us. That'll give it.
Whoa! Yeah,
there we go. Now we can really see behind you.
Let's get a view of
Look at
those. I mean, there's just acres and acres, and they have them arranged in color swaths. So you go through all the reds first, and in all variations, all hues. Then there's a section of whites. Then there's kind of mauves and purples and yellows. If you live anywhere near Canby, Oregon, I mean, this is a 40-minute drive from Portland, but this is a premier garden destination every August and September. They have all kinds of things have grown up around this. You know, they have the food court and everything. They have a huge display garden where cut flower display where they take single displays of each single variety, and they make a display out of that. So you're just wandering through, and just the artistry is amazing here.
Yeah. Oh man, dahlias are one of my favorites. There's so many different cool varieties, colors, and
they bloom for so long. They're great cut flower. They bloom for so long. Literally, these things are going to November. They're also a food. You can eat the tubers. The Incas or Aztecs, I guess, used to eat the tubers. I've tried. They're not, let's just put it this way. They're not undelicious, but they're not necessarily, but, there's other varieties that are a little more delicious. And, I imagine you could breed for, I don't know, if you tried all these different dahlias and you tried to evaluate them, not for the flowers, but for the tuber taste, you would then start to develop a whole new kind of dahlia that's more for tuber.
Wow. Excellent, man. That's amazing. Well, thanks. I had no idea. What a great surprise. Here you are on location at this Dahlia exhibit. That's just amazing. That's awesome.
Me too.
But you know what else is really amazing and awesome,
Frankly.
Mark?
What's amazing and awesome?
We've got a fantastic guest to talk to today.
Oh my God.
This is a little bit different than our book club, where we get together and all of that. But let's go ahead and welcome to the stage our guest today. Can't wait to talk to him about all of his, as we call it, adventures in permaculture. Let's welcome Andrew Millison with us today. Andrew.
Hello.
Great to see you there. How's it going?
Good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Yeah, I can hear you. Although I got a little echo coming. Is there a little echo? I'm not sure.
You got an echo? Echo.
A little echo.
Good.
I think it's good. I think it's me. I'm echoing on.
Okay.
I might be.
If I need to plug in some headphones, let me know.
See, a lot of times we tell people to really listen, to really understand something, you have to hear it more than once. So they're going to hear it like 3 times today.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we might need some headphones.
Okay.
I don't really, because I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Give me a sec.
Not a problem.
Look at this for a second. While Andrew's doing that, I'm going to show you this. This one is called Outrageous. It's like as big as my face.
Wow.
I love these. Some of these, what they call the dinner plate dahlias, are just enormous.
Oh man, that's fantastic. We got it. Let's see here. Yeah, look at all that, and then you got a lot of people out there checking it out.
Oh yeah,
that looks
the people
like
are
real
just
fun.
Freaking milling around. It is fun. It's just fun. It's great when, it's great when beauty, especially in this day and age, when beauty can just unite people, put a smile on their face. Everybody's here having a great time and thinking about gardening. Of course, you can order. Now's not the time to plant the dahlias, obviously, but they get you in the pipeline with an order form, and then they'll ship them to you in April or May around here in Oregon. That's when we're planting them.
Excellent. Right on. All right, there we go, Andrew.
All right. How's that sound now?
Sounds great.
Is that better?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's all right. It's kind of a little
great to
different
meet you, Andrew. I've been admiring your work from a distance, and I always wanted to talk to you. So this is a great opportunity.
Great.
Look at this. We got a nice round table right here, straight from Oregon, too, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Nice. Yeah, great to talk to you.
I'm down here in Southern Oregon. Mark's over in Canby. And where are you at here now, Andrew?
In Corvallis.
Excellent.
We're kind of lining up right along I-5.
That's right, exactly. We got Western Oregon covered top to bottom.
We do. We sure do.
That's right.
But speaking of Western Oregon, you've been like traversing the whole wide world, right? And I've seen you posting from everywhere, basically.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, actually, and it just continues on. So it seems like that's where my life is taking me. And you know what? Honestly, I have a lot more stuff that I've actually filmed in other places that we haven't released yet because it takes so long to edit stuff. So I've actually, So it's going pretty crazy right now.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about and tease out some of that here a little bit later on. But tell us a little bit. We'll get started with for folks who might not have met you or seen your videos, and I just want everybody to know we got linked down below in the description there to go check out Andrew's channel on YouTube. I'm telling you, some of the most spectacular, just documentaries of all of this just amazing things going on and around the world, some of these projects and going on. I just can't believe I've been just soaking it up over the last few days, some of your most recent videos and everything too, and just such amazing work you do. Really inspiring. So for those of you who are out there, garden creators and folks out there making their own content, you ought to go check out Andrew because he does some just amazing stuff. Tell us a little bit about yourself, for one, and and how you got kind of started on this adventure of yours.
Yeah, well, I took my first permaculture design course back in 1996. So I was lucky to have come across permaculture early on, when I was just in my early 20s, and I was looking for how do we fix the world here? I mean, what are we going to do? You might say I was like a early adopter to climate change, to realizing that everything was was not
heading in the wrong direction.
Heading in the wrong direction. I saw
That's
very
right.
early on, you know, even like in my I graduated high school in 91. So even like late 80s, early 90s, you know, I was like listening to reggae music and rap music and
Yeah.
growing dreadlocks. And I grew up in Philadelphia, and it was all this like really anti-authority, the system, all this stuff. And I was like, wow, like something's not going right. And then I got exposed to like, you know, people starting about climate change. And, you know, back then it seemed very hyperbolic, really.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're talking, 35 years ago, people talking about like the glaciers melting. Everybody's like, that's something that, that's going to be 35 years in the future. We don't have to worry about that. Right. Well, here we are, you know?
Yeah.
So
here we are. And everything they said is, you know, has happened. You can't deny it now.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
Yeah. So I realized as a young man, I was like, I don't know how to survive. I don't know how to live. I don't know how to grow food. I don't know how to do anything, you know? And so that kind of set me in the right direction. Then I came across permaculture in the mid 90s. And once I did, then I just realized that like, wow, this is a real roadmap to how to make this world, you know, make this world right in a sense, you know, put things back into place. And so that kind of got me started. And I just, you know, I mean, I think I don't know if last time we talked, Enoch, maybe I went into like, you know, the whole story, but that's probably maybe repetitive at this point. My life story from when I took a permaculture class. Now 30 years later, lots happened.
Yeah. Wow.
But you took that knowledge and then started teaching Oregon State University, right? So
I mean, that was in 2009. So you know, I had 13 years of being a landscape design contractor, building, you know, doing gray water installations, rainwater harvesting, all of this work on the ground. You know, I built Maynard Keenan's vineyard, the lead singer of Tool, in
I love it. One of my favorite bands growing up myself. Man.
Yeah, totally. So I had some experience doing really large scale projects, and then basically well, it's very interesting. I wonder maybe if you might want to mute your mic while you're not talking, because all the background noise of all the kids and stuff like that. I feel like I'm there with you, but just pop it on when you're gonna ask a question. Yeah, that might be help. Thank you. Sorry,
perfect. Good
I was getting distracted. I'm like, oh, what's she saying? Does that kid need an ice cream cone? Oh, you know.
No problem. There we go. That's much better. You're right.
Thank you. Yeah. So what was I saying? Somewhere between, so all the things that are happening right now, there's all this really new information coming out, you know, big news stuff about how low all these big reservoirs are on the Colorado River right now.
Yeah.
Lake Powell, Lake Mead, you know, all these things are at these record lows. Well, this was all forecasted back, you know, over 20 years ago. People were saying, well, with climate change, with the reduction of snowpack, you know, warming, melting of glaciers, right? It's a big topic this week. And so that the Colorado River basin was going to start to dry, basically.
Yeah.
And we had some really big fires. And I basically was like, I'm going to move to Oregon where there's actually water. I was like, I'm going to move somewhere where there's water, you know, and farmland. I was living in Prescott, Arizona, the high desert. And so I came here, and then I started teaching at Oregon State University in 2009, you know, and then developed this online program, which became the biggest non-credit online program at the university. And so the success of the online program allowed me to just like go into this global storytelling phase, you might say.
So tell us a little bit. What brought you again to that moment where you're, you know, I'm going to go on and be this independent, right? You're an independent documentarian, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still work at Oregon State University. I still have a whole online program there. I still teach permaculture there, and a lot of my productions I've produced through OSU, so like in collaboration, and I use them for my course content. But then I started the Earth Repair Fund, which is creating content that's also raising funds for the projects themselves. So we've so I kind of have become like independent of OSU in that respect, but I'm still very much embedded in Oregon State University. But I went to India in 2017 for the International Permaculture Conference, which is just like, if you're into permaculture, going to these international conferences is just really, really cool. And so I went to India, and I took a little camera and I documented. I was like, started documenting these projects, and I got back. I edited, spent all this time editing, and I put them up on OSU's YouTube channel. And then I got all these comments like, "Wow, have you ever heard of color correction? Hey, when you film directly into the sunlight, that you kind of," and I was like, "Oh man, I don't know anything about filming."
Right. Yep.
And I was exposed to these massive scale, incredible projects. And I was like, nobody knows about this stuff. And this is the coolest stuff going on the planet, large scale grassroots land restoration, bringing millions of people out of water scarcity, out of poverty. And I was like, I gotta learn how to use a camera. I got to get some equipment, and I have to actually tell these stories. So I did all that between 2018. Then I went back in 2019, 2020, and I actually filmed a whole series. And then I started my own YouTube channel too, because I was putting stuff on the OSU's YouTube channel, but it just was getting like lost in the sea of content. And I realized that if I wanted to have people that were just focused on land restoration, permaculture content, I needed to create my own YouTube channel. So that's sort of the short story of the genesis.
Yeah.
Those are such interesting models in the sense to share, because they, as you say, a lot of times they're, when we think of helping folks in other countries, and what's been called the underdeveloped world or such, there's often this emphasis on, it's like NGOs are going to do it, governments are going to do it, and here you're saying no, local people who have the local wisdom are already doing it. They're doing it and succeeding, and we don't know about it. So that's such a great way to broadcast and become this source of information that is absolute. Our media has no interest in this kind of stuff, right? We know that it feeds what it feeds on, and it does not feed on people empowering themselves to heal the earth. So it's somebody else has got to do it. So it's awesome that you have stepped up to do that.
Thank you. Another thing is that I didn't imagine that such a mass audience was going to be interested in this. I was thinking about the permaculture community, right? And I was thinking about how in the United States, the permaculture, like people's perception of permaculture is very it's filtered by American society. Right. So American society is so divided. So permaculture becomes this oh, it's leftist, or oh, it's people in the far left or the far right, or people kind of pigeonhole people that use these systems and these techniques based upon our political lenses or political perspective of how what groups people need to somehow fit into in America. But I was like, when you go to these other countries, there's people using permaculture, and it's not in the American context at all. And permaculture is actually way more widespread in other places than it is here. And it's a completely different context. It's on the context of basic survival, of water, food, not needing to migrate, having nutrition, having your children not malnourished. I mean, it's when permaculture is brought into the context that people's very basic needs can be improved by this design system, it's a completely different story. And I was like, man, I need to break people out of the sort of American perspective of permaculture that's just so influenced by all the, by American culture in a way.
Yeah. And I think it's just, what you do. And again, the response that you get, you know what I mean? Your channel, just blew up and grew, and shows that really, our American media, if you will, maybe other places of the world might have a bit of it as well too, but they don't really just have our interests in mind. You know what I mean? Not what because again, it's a testament. People are interested in this stuff. people do want to know about how things can be healed and taken care of by what other people are doing around the world facing similar situations.
Yeah.
You know, and the other media out there has another interest that they have versus what we really do, and I think it shows with what you do.
Yeah. Well, you know, divide and conquer is like
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
that's what's happening to us.
Yes.
We're being divided and conquered. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you know, I'm reading a book. I don't know, it's not a permaculture book, but it's an amazing book on history called The Open Veins of Latin America. I don't know if you've ever seen it or heard it, but it is a masterful work. But there's so many parallels I'm seeing. It's about the intense resource drain from South America, Mexico, by the Spaniards, by Europe in the 1600s and so on. And it has so many parallels, I think, to us right now, because we're living this empire, but it's very glitzy. It's very focused on luxury items. Really, it has since, it sounds like you and I are about the same age, Andrew. And, really since my raising, and Enoch also as well, we're all in the same boat. We've been on the rising tide of an empire that's taken from other places and given us these luxury, this convenient life, these mass-produced foods, industrial food system, all this kind of stuff. But now we're starting to see the decline of that with climate change, with our current government, all these kind of things, where we're going to have to rely more on ourselves as these other, it's not so much underdeveloped nations, they're depleted nations. Things were taken from them, right? Lands, the resources were taken from them. And so then they're having to come up with a very scrappy but very self-styled way of surviving and meeting their basic needs: water, food, etc. So it's like we're starting into that same boat ourselves. We're starting to feel the pains of it, and we're going to need something more robust in our communities and our daily lives and such.
Yeah, there's a really interesting point there. And, I go to all these different countries, and then in the process of creating the documentary, the mini documentary YouTube video, we're going, okay, so, what did this place used to look like? And then to some degree, like, what's the natural history? And, I mean, not most of the time, it's like all the time, it's like, okay, let's see. Now, what was this place like? And then what was colonization? Who colonized it? And what did they extract? So right now, one of the videos we're working on is from East Timor, right? Timor-Leste, amazing country I got to visit. It's only been a country since 2002, right?
Really young country.
Really young country, because they had a horrible war of independence against Indonesia. That from between 1975 and 2002, where a third of the population was killed or died of starvation. Basically, it was like, I remember back in the 90s. I remember being around and seeing like flyers on like telephone poles of like some punk show. They're like, Free Timor, it was like the thing back. It was kind of this underground thing in a way, but it was like the worst genocide that was happening in the world at that time in the late 90s. And so, but so I went there. Now it's an incredible place. Now they're doing massive nationwide permaculture project there, by the way. It's incredible what they're doing, but you're like going through. To see. Yeah, and you're like, what happened? They're like, okay, well, let's see. First, there was 400 years of Portuguese colonization. And that's when they took all of it's like, what were the trees? Was it like sandalwood? They're like, oh, and that's when all of I can't remember if it was like sandalwood trees or there was some sort of valuable tree. Like, oh, all of those were extracted. And then Indonesia came in. Then the Portuguese, like their empire kind of fell apart. They pretty much left all of their colonies around 1975. And then like, oh, and then 9 days later, Indonesia came and invaded the country. And then, they extracted this. So it's like a lot of the stories of the places. These places are like the stories of what was there, what was extracted, how did they get in, how did they take it, where do they take it from, how do they get it out, then the only places that are seemingly sort of untouched are like inaccessible, the most inaccessible places that you couldn't extract, harvest and ship off the resources are the ones that we find any kind of old remnants of the original ecosystems.
Yeah, it's just Unbelievable when you think about just the wider scale of that worldwide, and just power being used against us as just everyday people and our lands and our cultures and traditions kind of go along with all of that sort of stuff as well too. So, I mean, it's just, it's something else when you really, really take that whole picture in. And, again, let's see here real quick. Actually, I got a question here for you.
Okay.
Jay's asking, what is one place or project that fundamentally changed your understanding of what is possible? And what did you learn there that you think the rest of the world still hasn't fully understood?
Yeah, well,
That's a deep question, Jay.
that's a
Thank
deep
you.
question. Yeah, thank you. I love questions like that, and I got a lot of answers for that, but I'll talk about the one that we're working on. We're going to be releasing soon a video. It's an Earth Repair Fund video, so it's a fundraising video for this project in Sumatra, Indonesia, right? Where they literally they are buying palm oil plantations, right? So it's palm oil monoculture, and then they're cutting down the palm oil, they're replanting like biodiverse jungle, permaculture, multi-storied food forests, and bringing back the orangutan, right?
Oh, yeah.
So right at the edge of these critical biodiversity habitats, and they created this forest on the edge of their site and the national park that's like a forest that both orangutans and other primates and humans can both harvest from.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I guess that would be the the thing where you're like, oh my gosh, people are actually designing a forest that is not just for wildlife and is not just for humans, but actually contains such a diversity of food that both humans and wildlife can harvest from the same forest. Right.
Yeah.
It's that perfect mix, and it attacks that idea that, and one of the books that really changed the course of my life was Wendell Berry's Unsettling of America. I read that when I was in my 20s, and I just started getting into farming. And the main thesis of that book is that in America, we say, okay, 5%, and this is even being challenged now, but 5% of the land is for national parks. That's wilderness. Don't touch it. That's where we let nature be and do its thing. And then the other 95% we use, and by use means despoil. So we've always had this really bipolar, polarized version of how to be with nature. We either can't touch it, and that's real nature, or we ruin it. So this is like a project that tries to heal that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, and instead it's like, that's the roadmap that permaculture presents, is like, how can humans supply what we need and also, and not destroy nature, actually increase, biodiversity, increase water absorption and all of that. But this was an example, like, because, monocultures and nature are directly oppositional to each other.
Right.
You can't have both of those things exist at the same time. So to actually see this, like this middle ground, but to really see it at scale, where you're like, okay, you literally have, I mean, when we think of primates and we think of like primates in a human agricultural system, it's like, that is, the ultimate thing that we'd want to keep out. So that really opened my eyes, to actually see it in practice there in Indonesia.
Yeah. Indonesia, let's see what, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, place in Africa. In fact, kind of thinking of the relationship between humans and animals kind of makes me think of a little bit of the videos you did there in Africa, and talking about these half moons, right?
Yeah.
And how they would, how they really worked in some areas, but they weren't working in other areas. And you find out it's grazing and these sort of things that are going on, and that sort of stuff that were kind of limiting their ability to have those work. Maybe you can talk just a little bit about those parts of, or those videos, or those that story of those areas that you were trying to tell there.
Yeah. So, the Great Green Wall of Africa is
Yes,
basically
that's what.
a plan to hold back the expansion of the Sahara Desert, the southern expansion. And so I took a couple different trips. One was in Senegal, which is the
Hmm.
westernmost country on in the continent of Africa. And then, so I reported on a project there, a small project, only like 30 hectares, that was a very new project
Yeah.
right on the border with Mauritania, creating these half moon structures to harvest water, soak the
Hmm.
water into the ground, grow grasses for animals, and then grow trees and actually reestablish trees on this particular site, area that had been abandoned. Nobody had done agriculture there because it was so hard packed and just depleted for 40 years. So they took this
Yeah.
completely just hammered desert area
Yeah.
and they did this restoration project there, and very fast results because
Hmm.
you just create a container for water to collect and put some seed in, and it's like you have the components for life. Things wash in, all kinds of animal manures and twigs and bug carcasses, and you just get soil building very quickly. But
Yeah.
that video did so well, the World Food Program was like, that video was that's my most viewed video. They're like, that's so incredible, but like that project is really not representative of some of our bigger stuff. And so
Yeah.
let's actually take another trip and let's go to Niger and Chad and really see some of the like
Yeah.
10-year-old projects. So there, I mean, in Niger, they've restored 450,000 hectares.
Yeah.
I mean, huge,
Wow.
vast areas, mostly done in those half moon water harvesting structures. And here's an interesting fact that just was sent to me recently by the former director of the resilience program or department, whatever, at the World Food Program. He sent me an article, and I can find this and send it to you. You could post it in the show notes. That so they have satellites that are picking up water, groundwater. Now
Yeah.
you can measure groundwater, the presence of groundwater, and mostly around the world, what they're measuring is the depletion of groundwater around the world.
Yeah.
Right, the Ogallala aquifer. I mean, huge aquifers around the world are depleting. Well, they're like, why are the aquifers in southern Niger and Chad,
Yeah.
these areas they're like, we actually have aquifers that are growing in these
Amazing.
areas. And they didn't know. Only people that understood the projects picked it up later on and was like, yeah, you're literally having massive groundwater resources from these projects that are building, that are detectable from space. So you're like,
Yeah.
if you need any more proof, like there's your proof right there. They're like, is rainfall going up? They're like, we couldn't
Yeah.
figure it out. Yeah, it's hundreds of thousands of rainwater harvesting structures, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, and kind of on the point of like, we can't deny climate change today. It's just so present and so there. You know what I mean? But at the same time, with projects and things that are going on like this, and I've heard many people talk about like, a desert's a desert. Once that land's wasted and gone, it's gone. Right.
It's
But
not
then you
true.
see this sort of stuff happening, and like I was just completely blown away by how
Yeah.
that project has worked and what has been able to
Yeah.
be accomplished through, taking these permaculture ideas,
Yeah.
applying them even in a large scale like this, and we can really, really affect change across our globe in places that really, really need it. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
amazing, really.
I'm really excited. I'm going back to Africa in October.
Yeah.
Wait, did you? I'm sorry. What's it?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark.
Well, I was gonna say, after you say what you have to say, I want to know what's going on in the belly of the beast here, right in the U.S. of A., because we're the ones who are insulated in some ways from all these problems, and other people are feeling them much more directly. But yet, there's parts of the U.S. landscape that have, like I'm thinking of like Detroit, like a major city that has been in full-on collapse for a long time, but there's signs of regeneration. So I just, after maybe you can talk about where you see in the U.S. what's going on that's interesting here too.
Okay, yeah, for sure. And I actually have a project that I've already filmed in the U.S. I'm like it's way easier and faster to film projects than to edit them. It's also less expensive to film them. And once, because we get into the digital animations, the mapping, all this stuff, and it takes time. It's costly. Like, you know, if I have,
but it makes such a great product. I mean, the videos are just outstanding.
Thank you. But I guess my point is, I have so much stuff that I filmed that I haven't put out that I can. I have stories I can tell you. But I am headed to South Africa in October, and it's not the same sort of type of project like we saw up in the Sahel that I was visiting, but it's in the townships, right? Where basically places where when apartheid ended, conditions didn't really change in these places, right? So very poor places with a lot of just kind of violence and real like poverty that are they're teaching permaculture there. Created a permaculture center. They're teaching permaculture to the women who are going and taking their little plots within the townships and turning them into these permaculture gardens. And it's called the 10 Trees Project, where they're actually giving each of these women 10 trees, and they're putting 10 fruit trees into their plot. And so it's like small scale residential permaculture, but then multiplied hundreds of times throughout this whole township. So that's going to be a really fascinating story, you know, in the African context, but multiplying. So the theme of the half moons is you take one little unit and you multiply that same little pattern all over. This is the same thing. You take one small domestic residential scale and then you multiply it all over this whole township area and you get this cumulative effect. Some students edit. Yeah, you know what? Students can't edit videos like a professional can. That's the problem. Right. So, you know, we're very, I'm very picky, and you know, I would rather like I will I'll put a video up and I'll literally like, if I'm like something's wrong, like sometimes you don't realize a video something's wrong until you put it up and you see like the comments. I've had a couple times where I've literally taken videos down and reworked them because I was like, no, I missed something here. Like something's off and I need to correct it. So, you know, we take our times with these, and a student editor is just not going to cut it. But anyway, in the US, back to Mark's question there. So I have another video I filmed that I'm really excited to try to get out. It's been like, we filmed it over a year ago, from Houston, Texas. And I actually think this is maybe the biggest permaculture design that I've ever seen. Okay. So Houston, as many people remember, Hurricane Harvey. Right. Hurricane Harvey was so devastating. There was parts of Houston that got over 50 inches of rainfall in like a 4-day period. I mean, it was it was like
dropping a bucket of water, right?
Exactly. It was just like literally walls of water falling for days, because that storm, it came in from the Gulf and it just sat there. You know, so parts of Houston got that much water. I mean, big parts of Houston were severely flooded. They were inches away from even way more intense flooding. So it was a record rainfall event, not just for Houston, but I mean, was it a world record rainfall event? It was a historic scale rainfall event. Okay. Yeah. So Houston, the city of Houston was like, what are we going to do here? Like, if this happens again, you know, we can't let this happen again. So it was actually, and what I found out was that the people that kind of were part of this and came up with this idea, they were associated. Like the one guy, his wife was actually a permaculture person. So they had this sort of systems level thinking. And so what they did was they started finding places like old industrial areas, or also neighborhoods that were just like always flooding, right? Yeah. So the city went, or just derelict lands, stuff like that. So the city went and strategically acquired areas. They actually like literally kind of condemned this whole neighborhood that just was always flooding. And they, you know, bought these people out, and they took existing parks that were big, but were not serving like any hydrologic function. And they carved out these series of lakes and ponds and all these overflow channels. So, you know, because the waterways had all been channelized into, you know, they call them bayous, right? So they have these bayous, and then they were like, okay, let's make it so when the bayou reaches a certain level in a flood stage, we're going to put in this overflow, and the water can spill into this like massive, 100-acre park that can store, tens of millions of gallons of water for flood. And they've put these all over the system. So it's like they've taken the channelized drainage system of the entire Houston, area there, and they've like put in all of these little water, I'd say little water harvesting offshoots, but these like compared to the size of the city, but this whole massive water harvesting little spillways all over on like a systemic level. I'm talking about like the system of the watershed. And then a lot of these, they turned into these incredible wildlife parks, and there's just, birds and plants. And I mean, it's really beautiful. And so it's also like the people are really benefiting because now they have these beautiful parks that are interspersed everywhere with wonderful trails, and people are fishing and, taking boats around and stuff. And so it was just a really cool, and this is for flood mitigation, but then like anything in permaculture, like you never just do one thing for just one reason. It has these repercussions in the whole system. So that's a really neat project that I'm hoping to publish sometime not too long from now.
Yeah, can't wait to see that one. Oh,
I know, it's great to get. Well, it's just great to get these stories fresh. I love it because you've got this repository, it sounds like, of all these treasures that you're waiting to share to the world. So it's fun to just be in conversation because you don't have to hire a production assistant to talk, which is great. So we're getting all these little gems and nuggets. Thank you. I love that. I love that multifunctionality and really like returning wilderness and wildlife at the same time as doing flood mitigation and improving people's quality of life. It's so amazing. And so, why do you think more people aren't turning to permaculture in terms of like on the urban scale, on the planners? What are the forces that mitigate against going with this permaculture that seems to have so many great advantages? What's going on there in your mind?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of lowest common denominator thinking going on.
Yeah.
People are doing the easiest, the standard, there's just like a set of patterns, what people were taught in school, and I don't know if the problem is that people aren't thinking. I don't know if there's a certain segment of our population that like decided to stop innovating potentially, because you look around the world and you see a lot of, even on the look at China, I'm investigating being able to go to China, and the sponge cities, right? Like China's on top of it. I've been looking at Google Earth. I've been doing all this research on sponge cities, and I've been looking at Google Earth and trying to figure out like where there's some really cool locations. And I found some where I could, on Google Earth, you can slide the before after, and I'm like, whoa, look at this, wow. And they're like, oh, they're all over it, creating cities that are designed in a way that it's basically, the city is is still hydrologically like part of the system in a beneficial way. So, I don't know what,
just limitations in the thinking, there's just maybe again to political, these sort of other things that kind of get in the way of kind of understanding things that just make sense. Just on the face of them, they just make sense. But again, I think that's what's the importance of, folks like yourself who are out there telling these stories, showing these things to people, these, large scale, small scale projects, things that are done, kind of even continuing on Mark's last question about things going on in the United States. I think really, one of the ones that really fascinates me lately that you did was down in Tucson, Arizona. And what is it, Brad Lancaster down there doing and just literally just going and doing something illegal, right? You know what I mean? Just cutting the curbs and doing something, but taking a chance, right? And to show people what could be possible if you just kind of take a chance and you can kind of show. And then the city of Tucson, learns about it years later, figures this all out. Wait a minute, this is a benefit. We can see it directly right in front of us in our own city. Let's work to expand this, right?
Yeah. So and I see Greg Peterson commented there. So
yeah.
Okay, everybody, we got to up our game here. We got Greg listening. So.
I know, exactly. Greg was on with us yesterday too, having a great conversation with him as well too. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd encourage everybody to watch the recent video that we released July 1st from Tucson, and it's the 30-year work of Brad Lancaster. I mean, Brad, who is well known as the author of Rainwater Harvesting for Drylands and Beyond, volumes 1 and 2, and he's like the water harvesting guy, maybe in the world. I mean, there's a lot of people in different countries doing things, but Brad he was my original permaculture teacher back in 1996, one of them. And so, just by cutting the curb, letting the water go into a little, city right of way, planting a hardy native desert tree like a mesquite or a palo verde there, and getting the storm runoff from the road to soak into the landscape instead of being shunted off into, drainage pipes and eventually, down the dry riverbed and a little flash flood there. So now the water's soaking into the ground, growing all these trees. And I mean, the results of 30 years of cumulative planting tree by tree by tree and basin by basin by basin, you've actually have cooling over a whole neighborhood now. I mean, it is really spectacular to see the cumulative effect of small scale actions. They have species of birds. I was there. There's a roadrunner running around now, lives, and they've got quail. It's like all these desert birds are coming back because there's enough vegetative coverage in the neighborhood to support these desert species. I mean, it is like just spectacular. And we're raising money through that video for the project. So, that's through the Earth Repair Fund. So that's some of the work I'm doing now is like, how do we turn all these views into money into like work, actual progress on the ground? So that's what the Earth Repair Fund is doing. So that video there is part of that. So I'd encourage people to, if you believe in this stuff, to go watch the video and to actually donate directly to the project, because it does have, it's working. We're going to expand the project. And what they're doing also is not just doing the work, but creating the resources so it can spread, creating drawings that other cities, the city of Albuquerque just legalized street side
giving
basins.
A blueprint.
Exactly. Giving them a blueprint. So, don't undervalue the power of like having a blueprint and having a really good example to share with city planners. That's how you make the change. They need to see proof that it worked somewhere else.
Exactly.
Hey, Andrew, talk a little bit about, I mean, there's a sense in which, when we kind of get into these permaculture discussions and we're talking about these, individuals who have made these contributions and done something great, it's almost like, oh, this is the first time this has ever been thought about. But, or even like, oh, Bill Mollison, man, the guy's a genius. He put together this whole thing. It's like native peoples have been functioning with these systems forever. And this is all, rediscovery of, we're not inventing anything, we're rediscovering. So talk about your relationship with native peoples when you travel in this country, what kind of wisdom exchanges you're having there in terms of care for the land. Because, native peoples have always seen themselves as an integral part of any landscape and never as opposed to it. I mean, this is a totally Western concept that it's us versus everything else in nature, right? So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Wow. There's just so many different stories to tell around that, because most places I go are places where native people are still living on their land and practicing there, or many places I go. I mean, so a lot of the stuff you saw throughout Africa, right? We're going and we're visiting, and, the people there have been on that land for time immemorial. We did a really great video with the sovereign indigenous nation of Hawaii. And that is a native group they have the only indigenous sovereign territory in the whole Hawaiian Islands, and they are restoring their traditional ahupua'a, which is the watershed-based agricultural system. And so, you know, the thing, okay, so I've worked with and interacted with, in the case of these videos, many different native groups in many different parts of the world. And I guess I'll just bring up like some themes, right?
Yeah.
So first off, the permaculture design system is for people that have lost their way.
Yeah.
People that are disconnected from their, like, every one of us comes from some indigenous land practice. Your ancestors somewhere down the line lived on land and were practicing some sort of, like, what we'd say a permaculture system in some way, right? Way before the word permaculture. So, but, you know, many people through migration and all this were fragmented, were displaced from their traditional land use practices. And so permaculture is like a roadmap that can kind of get you back to how, and it's really for the Western mind, it's for the intellect, for how you can figure out how you can create a design using this system that, works harmoniously with nature, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you are living in like an intact indigenous culture where you're practicing your traditional ecological knowledge, you have no need for permaculture design system, right? And in fact, for many native groups that I've spent time with, it's not just the land practices. Land practices are integrally, integrated with spiritual beliefs about the world, connection. Like permaculture actually takes the design system and puts it where, like, permaculture is specifically what we say metaphysical. It's specifically like it's a scientifically based system. It actually is, the system itself is absent of spirituality. Right. Or like animism. And that is by design. Right. So it can be adopted by any group without having any particular spiritual baggage, but it also takes out, like there was an interesting letter by a group of native people. I'd love to find that again. It was like a public letter saying, stop calling permaculture repackaged indigenous wisdom, because that is where you are actually, that indigenous wisdom, it recognizes that the land is alive. Is a being. Permaculture is a scientifically based. They're like, you're giving indigenous wisdom a bad name by saying that permaculture is repackaged. It was just a very interesting perspective that I had never heard before. But now, what I'm seeing with native groups, and the group in Hawaii is a good example. I was just in Panama, and I was in a project, a 24,000 acre reforestation project, 25-year-old project called the Mamoni Valley, a place called Geoversity. And they are, this valley directly abuts sovereign Kuna territory. The Kuna are indigenous people in Panama that have like a whole big strip of Panama on the Caribbean side, all the way up to the Continental Divide. And then this Mamoni Valley directly abuts that. And they're working very closely with the Kuna, and they're there on the invitation of the Kuna. And what I saw there, and what I've seen in a lot of other, with a lot of other indigenous groups, is that modernization and colonization has fractured their traditional practices. And you see this all over. It's kind of the story we're talking about in Timor-Leste, where, oh yeah, the Portuguese were colonized there for 400 years, like people's traditional practices get, like, the lineage gets broken. So there's a lot of places where people have some of their traditional practices, but they're trying to deal with the pressures of modernization. So in this Panama, the Kuna there, they've got illegal ranching, gold mining, logging, wildlife poaching, pressing into their sovereign territory, right? So like, and they're needing to like work within the economic system. So suddenly permaculture becomes a useful tool because it really can offer a perspective even to indigenous people that are practicing traditional ways, but that are having the fragmentation from the pressures of modern society. So, you know, I mean, we could talk about this probably for a long time. It goes very deep.
Yes.
And I guess I get a little bit resentful when I hear people are like, permaculture, that's just stealing indigenous knowledge and repackaging it, you know, and making money off of it. Because it's like, from all the stuff that I've seen, it's just like, there's a deep, you know, in many places you find like a really deep connection with indigenous people using permaculture in ways that are helping them to get through the pressures of modernization. You know, so it's just, there's a lot more nuance and subtlety than being able to kind of like black and white any particular topic. Right. So that's just a little bit.
Yeah, that's a fascinating way of looking at it, because in a way, globally, we're all on this evolutionary journey, and even no society has staying still, right? Amidst all the pressures, amidst all the history, however it's gone for people, everyone's evolving, everyone's moving along on a trajectory. And sometimes it's not just like this nostalgic return to a past, right? It's like, if I can just get enough land and put a big enough fence around it, I can live as my people have lived. No, we're all interconnected, and ideas, climate systems, it's all interconnected. So people, of course, would be evolving. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I'll tell you interesting, like I lived in Arizona for 14 years. And so I had a lot of interaction with Navajo people, with Hopi people. And it was like one of the first times I was pretty new at permaculture, but I was contacted by a Sundance chief up on the Navajo Nation. And he was like, you know, we're having like problems, like land problems. And I'm just like trying to get some help here. You know, can you come up and look at it was their ceremonial grounds, their Sundance grounds. Right. And so I was like, wow, sure. So I came up there, and, you know, the problem was that as time went on, everybody's coming in now with vehicles. So everybody's bringing trucks in. And so the whole camping area that's where everybody's staying, that's above the ceremonial grounds, they're bringing all these vehicles in. And then that was, starting this like highly erosive process.
Yeah.
Right. And the answer was, you need to, because the sands there, soils are so sandy. So the answer was like, you need to park somewhere else. Like, you can't bring this area. If you're going to have this area, you know, this is an erosion causing area. You can't have this as the parking lot right above the ceremonial grounds, or you're going to have this continual trigger. So it's like that, I guess that sort of is like a little bit of just a story that kind of represents like the pressures of modernization, and how those can just clash right up against traditional ways, traditional ceremonial ways, in a way that like we just need to use stuff like permaculture is like, oh, let's take a look at this whole landscape from this perspective. And, you know, suddenly we can get some like sometimes simple answers. Hopefully permaculture will end up providing some simple answers. So a lot of different stories like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, too, I think there's, you know, again, growth, human growth and expansion and these sort of things are, you know, I mean, I guess just still inevitable. There, you know, it continues, and there's, you know, a need as we're growing and doing things to be able to just kind of acknowledge some of this, you know, historical knowledge, if you will, and bring it in with our, you know, with our moving forward, our growth, as we will, really in a way too, you know. And again, I wanted to talk about this, maybe kind of line it up in that way, is that, you know, I really enjoyed, I think, is it your most recent video you did in Singapore that you just released? And, you know, here we are, we're talking about a big, massive city, massive buildings, you know, millions of people, you know, all this sort of stuff, and this area and this place finding ways to green itself, to do things that, you know, when I like the perspective too, maybe you can talk a little bit about that as well, is that, you know, the big city, it's green. I mean, you guys got to go out and check this video who are watching with us today. You got to go check out all of his videos. But this one I thought was just spectacular. I mean, look at this massive city, and everywhere you look, you know, even though you're seeing buildings and all this sort of stuff, you're seeing trees and plants growing all over the buildings and all over this sort of stuff going on. And even though that, you know, they're doing that sort of stuff, I like the perspective that you brought. Well, how can we kind of turn some of this that they're doing, which is going in the right direction, but also maybe move it and veer it towards an even more purposeful direction by taking, you know, ornamental plants, which a lot of it is, and growing edibles and creating food out of some of these spaces as well too.
Yeah. I think that, again, it's like breaking out of our American perspective on things, because I'm like, you know, I'm like, how do we fix like the current problems? Like currently we have millions and millions and millions of people living in high rise, high density situations all over the world that really don't have access to land to spread out in and farm. Right. And it's not to say that Singapore, it would have to go to a very high extreme to really grow a significant portion of its food, because Singapore is an island. Singapore is like a hyper dense urban island, and there's very little farmland. There's very little open land, and most of it's like developed into parks and everything like that. The guys that I interviewed actually have, I mean, I didn't go into this in the video because it's a whole other thing, but they have a plan developed for how do you actually maximize food growth, you know, all out in Singapore, including like limiting, you know, limiting the amount of streets and turning that into farmland, and building out like floating like farms into the ocean. I mean, they have all kinds of ideas of just like, how is Singapore going to survive, basically, you know? So there's a lot of people thinking like this, but you know, so I mean, I think that I probably take criticism and critiques in the comments and stuff probably like more seriously than I should.
Right.
Perchance. I'm just saying.
It's kind of hard not to sometimes.
It's kind of hard not to, but I'm always thinking of like, okay, the people that are like, oh, city, like this shouldn't even exist. Oh, so, you know, all the concrete and like that are sort of just critical because their ideal world, people aren't living in skyscrapers, and the embodied energy, which is massive of a skyscraper hyper urban environment, like shouldn't even really exist. And that's, you know, so you know, but the fact is that you've got people are people. And you've got people there, and you've got people living in, I mean, I was in Riyadh, you got people living in Saudi Arabia. You have a lot of people in the world living in places where maybe if we were going to redesign things, we wouldn't put so many people there. Like, how about Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say all of LA. It's like, come on, this doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So, but all those people that live in all those places that you might think shouldn't be there, right?
Yeah.
They're people they've got mothers and fathers and daughters and sons and husbands and wives, and they have lives, and like they want to live. And a lot of people are just in a place because that's where they were born. And so it's like, so I'm just like, how, Greg says Phoenix, right? Although Phoenix actually, you know, Phoenix was a very nice, lush place back in the day before, you know, settlement. I mean, it's a big valley. So there's some things going for Phoenix. I think it's been developed very poorly, but so, you know, people in high-rise skyscrapers, they want to grow food too. Yeah. Like people everybody is feeling the effects of climate change, of warming.
Yeah.
Right. Or of extreme weather, extreme climate. So like, how do we cool places that have skyscrapers? If they're going to build skyscrapers, how do we do it with greenery and you actually create habitat and food production? So, You know, I'm like, I don't think that there is a environment or a climate zone that I would not go to report on innovations, because everywhere we're going to need to make that change, or those places will be abandoned. If you can't import food into Singapore, you will have less of a population. If you can't get water to the cities in Saudi Arabia, you will have, I mean, it's like,
Exactly.
yeah, we saw a lot of the that was interesting, like with the whole Iran war going on and the threats of targeting desalination plants and all the stuff. And you're like, wow, you could depopulate tens of millions of people with certain,
that sort of action.
taking out certain, you're like, wow. I mean, it shows the vulnerability, of course, of a lot of our systems. That's for sure.
Yeah. Again, too, I want to, running out of time here already, but I did want to touch on, again, the video, as you just mentioned too, about Saudi Arabia. I mean, that was really very interesting as well too. I mean, look at this, long-standing area where people, populated, and you've got all this wastewater, you've got all this, which is, the output of having a lot of people and everything, but not doing the right stuff with it for so long, and then finding this permaculture type system that kind of helps solve this problem. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, how they're turning wastewater and cleaning it up and everything too. Again, I just found that project too so fascinating, as well as all of these other ones that you've covered and everything. But I think ultimately it really goes to show that, we can find solutions to these sort of things, even though we are a growing population of people throughout the world.
Yeah. And I guess the point is, just to kind of follow up on, like, we can find solutions, is we have the solutions.
Yeah. I guess rediscovering them or whatever.
So many.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, it's out there. Like, I mean, that's kind of like my YouTube channel. It's like, here it is. Here's this.
But I guess in a sense, applied to a larger scale of people, though, these things, historically we had, less people. Now we're more people dealing with a larger problem, right?
Yeah. And we're going to have a real shift in human consciousness.
Yeah.
Because the solutions are there. If humanity collectively was like, we need to fix these problems now, and we want to actually work with nature and use nature, collaboratively, what are we going to do? We're like, oh, here we go. Here, like you're saying, Saudi Arabia, here's how you clean a polluted river, right? Here, and then here's how you restore wastelands, depleted wastelands in the Sahel. Here's how you could potentially retrofit, or at least designed, major urban centers for food production, habitat, and cooling. Like, here's all these different pieces there. I see we have a question. You want me to answer that one?
Yeah. In your experience, what is actually preventing us from scaling the solutions? I guess it kind of goes along with what we're talking about. What would it take to move from inspiring individual projects to a global regeneration movement?
Yeah, I would say, in its the most basic answer would be capitalism, right? Would be that our system is designed, for the most part, to profit a few, and the few that are profiting increasingly more don't really care about this stuff. That the people at the top tend to be they care most about their own increasing wealth.
Yep.
Right. And so, we live in a system where there is such an imbalance of wealth, and the people, and what it's taken the people with the very most to get there are is things that they don't like. There are definitely people with billions and billions of dollars that, if they flipped the switch on, and be like, I actually want to use my money and reinvest it for good, things could change very quickly. But unfortunately, so I would just say, like, maybe the worst parts of human nature, which is like selfishness and seeing yourself as separate, right? We talked about, like, the indigenous perspective in the world, seeing yourself as connected. I mean, that's in a nutshell, seeing yourself as connected to the rest of the world. Like, we are connected. I am part of this planet, and you are like my fellow species, wherever you live in the world. I mean,
finding our common ground.
But unfortunately,
we need a Dolly Parton effect among the rich.
Yeah.
Right. That
Yeah,
kind of
totally.
sense of like, my wealth is to give back if I have been able to enjoy the circumstances such that I have wealth. But you know, this is very insidious. I think the interior battle is going to be a lot harder than the exterior battle, because even any of us, I remember I lived in Brazil for 2 years, and just here I perceive myself as a struggling middle class person. When I change context, I all of a sudden am like a wealthy oppressor who has my income now becomes the power to change many other people's lives. But when I'm put it back in this context, in its rat raciness and it's always looking up, it's just like I suddenly feel like I got nothing. I can't really spare anything. I got to keep driving forward. So it's the insidious inner psychological battles are just as harder actually than the external solutions, which are there, as you say, for the taking.
Yeah, very, very profound, Mark. And I think that's something that you get when you go to other places. And you know, I've gone a lot of places where I'm like, whoa, I'm rich.
Yeah.
Just the fact that I'm here, you know, I'm like, they're like, oh, people are looking at me like I'm rich, or, you know, like I have all, I'm like, well, I guess I got here. Right. So, but I mean, I've gone to a lot of places. Well, you know, Chad, I was in Chad. I mean, Chad, I think less than 3% of the country is electrified, like has electricity.
Wow.
And then if you go in the rural areas, it's less than 1% of the population, which means basically nobody has electricity.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like really base. But at the same time, where you say, oh, are those people poor? You know, what is wealth? I mean, if you're living in like, I mean, I guess, okay, if you have food and water and, you know, you're living in a village with your family and your kin and you're, you know, on the same land as your great grandparents and you're practicing these ways, you know, it's like, is that poverty? I mean, so you know, even saying that wealth or poverty is really just directly based on dollar amounts is really, I think that's false as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true, you know, and again, you know, I think about that a lot too. You know, I grew up very, very poor, you know, and then I look back at, you know, that life and that lifestyle, and I go and I look at the rest of the world and I go, man, even at that, I would have been a rich person in some places. And that really just gives me a whole different perspective. And, you know, and I may not have had the chance and opportunity to get around and check out some of these parts of the world and stuff. But Andrew, I just, you know, getting the chance to go to these places through your videos and the documentaries that you put together, you know, just really helps me get even further perspective of the world and what is possible. I think the work that you do is massively important. And it goes to show, as we talked about earlier, about how people are following and want to know about this stuff. People want these types of relook at, you know, types of solutions that we could do to put into our world and everything. So, you know, again, we got to finish up today, but just really spectacular. And thank you so much for, you know, coming here to our show and spending the time with us to be able to talk about this stuff and to, you know, and to kind of, you know, dig into some of these things going on around the world and even in our own country and our own communities and things as well too. You know, this is something we all face all over the place, and your stories and the things that you share, again, like I said, are just so important. I can't wait to see what you got coming out next. Everybody who's watching, please go down and check out Andrew's channel. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Go check out his videos. Go let him know that you saw him here on the Let's Get Growing show, all of that sort of stuff, because again, just some really, really important stuff. And final word there for you, Mark, as well, too.
Well, I'll just say that a similar thing that I say to the authors that we interview is a thank you for the effort that it takes to bring this knowledge to the world. I mean, thank you for your time today, but also for all these efforts you're making are really to magnify, to get them to broadcast the message. And there's, you know, we don't know the countless struggles and sacrifices you've made to do this. So thank you for whatever that's been. I'm sure it's legion.
Yeah, really.
It takes
a lot of work.
Time,
it's a lot of work.
Perseverance. Yes, we acknowledge that. So that's
tremendous.
That's us saying to you, we see that, and we know that you're making a contribution to the world. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. It means a lot, you know, and like sometimes I'm like disconnected from the effects in a way. I'm just like immersed in it, and I don't really necessarily take a lot of time to like celebrate victories, you might say. I think a lot of times I'm just sort of like, what's the next thing? And it's always,
Yeah.
So anyways, I appreciate the kind words, and it makes me feel purposeful and, appreciated. And I've had a good time talking to you guys as well.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. What a pleasure. I'm Enoch. I'm gonna have to duck out with Andrew here because I'm the ride for some people, and they're
no problem.
They're hovering around my peripheral
no
vision. I think they've looked at all the dahlias they can look at.
Excellent. Great. Again, well, thank you both here too.
Right.
Again,
what
Mark as well for joining in with the conversation. Andrew, again, can't wait to see what you got coming up next on your channel, and yeah, just keep going, man. We want to see more and more and more, and hopefully get a chance to talk with you some more about some of these just really amazing projects.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Enoch, and looking forward to talking to you again. Take care, everybody.
All right,
bye,
everyone.
Everybody.
We'll see y'all in just one moment. We'll be back to finish this all up. Okay. Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Hey, gardeners. Thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right. Thank you again to both Mark and Andrew Millison for joining with us today for our show. Is again such a great conversation. So many deep topics. We could spend a couple of hours on almost each and every little topic and thing that we were talking about today. As you can tell, it's just so much to think about and really important things. And I think that, that perspective that, Mark was bringing up at the end, about how we see ourselves versus, how other people live and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's really important for us to take that perspective and to, again, face the challenges that we faced here as we move and grow globally and take some of these solutions and really apply them. And in ways that, Andrew talked about with one of his most recent videos, there in Tucson, as he's raising money for that project down there, is that it's really us. It's us who has to push these sort of things and take interest in them and do that sort of stuff. A lot of those folks up at the top have a totally different other interest in mind when it comes to how we're going to live and how we're going to move forward into the future. And literally globally, we can all come together to really find some great solutions to, some of these issues that we have. And again, a really important work that Andrew does, as I mentioned there too. Definitely get down into the description there and go check out his videos. If you haven't watched one of Andrew's documentary videos, go watch one of his recent ones and you'll be hooked. I just, I spend a lot of time, watching a lot of folks out there and a lot of video content and everything too. But, I get in there and I got onto Andrew's most recent videos and I just couldn't get enough of, that. And I'm on the next one and on the next one. And I'm sure you all will be too. And be sure while you're watching some of those videos to let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. Again, everybody, thank you so much again for being here and hanging out with us today for this conversation, this Sunday roundtable here on our show. And it was great to have you all here with us. And I saw lots of great conversation going on there in the chat. So thank you all for being here as well. Just real quickly though, we got some things coming up here on the Let's Get Growing show next Saturday. Again, we're here every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern here. And next Saturday on the show, we're going to do another one of our community shows. That's right. This is where you, the audience, are the guest for our show. And, kind of like a as I mentioned all the time, like a radio call-in show. What we're going to do is give you the link to our backstage here, and you can come join us right here live on the show and share about all of your gardens and all of the things that you've got growing on as well, because you, the audience, are what really, really makes this show what it is. And I really appreciate you guys coming here each and every weekend and hanging out with us. And we love to do these community shows that you can be a part of the show as well, not just in the chat, but get on the show with us and talk with us and hang out and share with what you've got growing on there in your garden. So I really appreciate you guys coming in to join with us next Saturday. So be sure to tune in, come in and join the show and hang out with me here, and we'll talk all about what you've got growing on. Now, next Sunday edition of the show, I can't really tell you what's happening. We got something going on though, but I can't really tell you because you guys got to come and join me over at Chad's channel on Thursday. That's right, over at the Around the Garden Table show on Chad's Down Home Backyard Gardening channel. I'll be joining with him to talk all sorts of stuff. We'll talk about our show. We'll talk about gardening and growing and everything. But I'm also going to do a little special announcement too for our show and what we've got coming up. And you'll get to find out then what we've got going on this Sunday for the show as well too. So I hope that you all come and join with me and hang out with me and Chad this Thursday on his channel. It's really good fun. I love getting together and hanging with you folks on your channels and getting to talk with you and share your space with you as well too. So again, thanks to Chad down at Down Home Backyard Gardening for inviting me on, and hopefully all of you will get a chance to come and join with me over there. Really, really looking forward to doing this for sure. And what? Oh, they had bow tie. No, I don't know. I don't know. That's not going to be the surprise. I'll tell you that. Anybody who knows me already knows that you probably won't ever see me eating one of those super hots. I don't know. Maybe if I was able to raise up a huge amount of money or something like that for the show or something like that, I might think about doing something like that. I don't know. But those super hots, I love growing them, but I don't know about doing that. But yeah, once again, you guys come and check me out over at Around the Garden Table on Down Home Backyard Gardening this Thursday, September 3rd. It'll be 6 p.m. Central. I believe Jay has shared links to that there as well, so you guys can go and hit a reminder. And while you're at it too, here, let's go ahead and if you haven't yet, before the end of the show here, let's hit the thumbs up. Click that like button, subscribe, bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming episodes, and share with all of your garden friends and let them know about the Let's Get Growing show here each and every weekend. Like I said, at Saturday and Sundays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, all other time zones around the world for all of our other watchers from around the globe. I really appreciate you all being here with us today. And definitely, as I mentioned as well, to follow all the links down below and in the description to our guest. Like I said, Andrew's link is down there. Go check out some of his shows. You're not going to be disappointed. He does an amazing job, and we touched on it a little bit. I mean, just amazing documentary for an independent documentarian. He does such a fantastic job. We got links also to our other contributors, as I mentioned earlier in the show. Go and show them some support as well too, because that's what we're all about, supporting our gardening community here on the Let's Get Growing show. So go and check them out and let them know that you've seen them here on the Let's Get Growing show. Our good friend Paul from Guten Gardening. Thanks again, Paul, for such a great in the garden segment talking about volunteers. So go and check out Paul's channel as well. Thank you so much, everybody. And I hope to see you this Thursday. I always say the next Saturday, but no, I'm going to be on Chad's channel this Thursday. So I want to see you there this Thursday for the show. And yeah, I'll see all of you then.
Back of the run. See you on the flippy flops.